Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We are back. We have some games to discuss, some news regarding Sidney Crosby, a interesting waiver placement this morning, and a few other things. Russ, start us off with some non-hockey pre-show.
Well, I want to mention Jacob deGrom won back-to-back Cy Youngs. I think he was one vote short of unanimous, too, like Pete Alonso. But this time, I get it. Like, look, Scherzer had a good year. The Dodgers pitcher had a good year. I never know how to pronounce his name. So
Walker Buehler?
No.
Ryu,
yeah. And so that's fine. But he did something that even Tom Seaver didn't do with the Mets, and that's win consecutive Cy Youngs. That's hard to do in any era. I still think it was harder to do in the 70s, I'll be honest. But it's hard to do in any era, so it's a pretty big feat. And at least if the Met fans didn't make the playoffs, they at least, can have at least a better winner seeing some of their players win.
Well, I was sure I was taken aback a little bit by the AL Cy Young because the winner wasn't even the best pitcher on his team, and he won the Cy Young.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole should have won, but they gave it to Verlander. Maybe it's a career appreciation award because, this is probably – he's 36 and Cole is 28 or 29.
I would have given it to Cole.
Cole was down. Cole didn't lose a game since May and was one of the few reasons – one of the many reasons that the Astros got to the World Series. But there was an interesting stat. Verlander last season gave up 36 home runs.
Right.
Greg Maddux in his four Cy Young awards gave up cumulatively a total of 33. So that's a reflection on the game today, but it's also a reflection on the fact that Maddux was unbelievable.
Yeah. But he also a little bit of help with the strike zone.
Yes. I mean, you could drive a Mack truck through the strike zone back then. You had umpires like Eric Gregg who, if you're pitching a foot outside the strike zone, he would give you the strike.
Yeah,
so I get that. What the heck I was going to bring up? Oh, the Astros.
Yeah. So the Astros, it's interesting because the discussion goes on now. Alex Cora and Carlos Beltran are two big names that are thrown into this mix. Of course, the Mets just hired Carlos Beltran and are probably going to get a lot of questions and negative PR out of this. One person we're not hearing from is Rob Manfred. And again, all we hear is through writers that MLB is investigating. Like, you need to hear from the commissioner.
Well,
this is like, how long is this going to go on until the commissioner at least tells us that much?
The Houston Astros GM, who, by the way, the Astros are doing their own investigation. I'm sure that's going to be.
Oh yeah, that was great. During the playoff.
Spygate and Bountygate.
But no, I'm not even talking about that.
Oh, you mean about the assistant GM? Yes.
Yeah, about the assistant GM. That was a great investigation.
Yeah, but no, this is. I mean, honestly, there's tight lips going on right now because Lou Now was asked at the winter meetings about the situation, and he kept quiet. And Brian Cashman, which was interesting. Brian Cashman was asked in an interview whether they had filed any grievances with Major League Baseball, and he refused to say because he didn't want to. So that means
they did.
That means they did, and it went on deaf ears because Major League Baseball didn't want to impugn the 2017 world champion and the team that was in the World Series. I mean, we all know that this team is a bunch of friggin' cheaters.
Well, I mean, now it's getting ridiculous. And I never thought I would say Bud Selig was better than anybody as a commissioner, but he's better than Rob Manfred, and that's really sad. It's sad that I'm actually saying that, but Rob Manfred has already dropped the ball by not saying anything. He has. He initially has dropped and fumbled the ball. Now it's just a question of how far down is he going to fumble this and what is he going to do to make it right? Because, look, there are people that say, well, everybody cheats, everybody steals. Not like this. This is different. There is, like I said, we talked about it yesterday. I don't want to go into details about it again, but I'm just saying there's a difference.
Right. Interesting story here, and I'm not going to elaborate on it. Just it was an interesting little note. Apparently, the Washington Capitals lost the cup-winning puck from 2018. Now, this is the first I've heard of it.
Did somebody call Chris Pronger?
Well, according to this story in was it the Russian Machine website?
Right.
The cup-winning puck was purchased online by motivational speaker Tony Robbins. He bought the puck and he gifted it back to Capitals forward Lars Eller, who I believe was the guy who scored the game-winning goal.
Okay.
So I'm just shocked that it got lost in the first place. I mean, you'd think that it would have gone to Eller or to have gone to the Hockey Hall of Fame or something like that, but how could that be lost?
Well, at least Tony Robbins did the right thing and finally used some of that money for good use.
Well, you should use some of that money to get his horse teeth taken care of, but that's just a personal observation. Okay, hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, November 14th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with where everything should start, Toronto. And the Maple Leafs and New York Islanders. And I don't see Joe Morello in the chat. So
he'll hit me up a few times yesterday on Facebook.
Yes, I'm sure, him and his
different things, not hockey related, I don't think.
Yes, but I'll tell you, for Leaf fans, this was an incredibly frustrating game. Not only because of the chance of the knuckle dragging Neanderthals at Nassau Coliseum, but the Leafs in the first two periods dramatically outplayed the Islanders. They dominated the first, I would say, 10 to 12 minutes of the first period. Didn't get a lot of shots on goal. I think they only had 5 in the first period, but I thought dominated play, won a lot of puck battles, had some opportunities, could not get the opening goal. Islanders come down. Matthew Barzal scores the on a giveaway from Andreas Janssen and William Nylander. Gets the opening goal. They score on the power play to make it 2-0. The Leafs come back early in the second, get a Kasperi Kapanen goal, tie it on a Nylander goal. Nice play. So Janssen and Nylander make up for their mistake and make a nice play. And they hold the Islanders without a shot on goal for, I think, the first 13 or 14 minutes. And then on a turnover, Tyson Barrie exits the zone too early. They turn the puck over, and Beauvillier scores his second of the game to give the Islanders a lead that they never relinquished. They open up a 5-2 lead on another power play goal and an empty netter. The Leafs come back, get a couple goals to make it look better. But this is a situation, Russ, where I think the Leafs, in terms of dominant play, outplay the Islanders. And I made the point about this on Twitter, and of course got a lot of chatter back and forth. Leo Komarov with a hit on Justin Hall. Scott Mayfield with a run on John Tavares. No response from the Leafs. Emotions high at Nassau Coliseum. Hits like that whip up the crowd. It gets a team into the game emotionally. There's no pushback from the Leafs. They're not that type of team, and I get that. That's the team that's being built, but that is a problem with this team because they get out-hit, they get out-muscled, they get out-strengthed, if that's a word.
It's not, but it's okay.
But okay. Yeah, it's my Buffalo education. But those things matter. And in games, unless you're dominating, unless you have overwhelming speed and skill over the other team, that kind of stuff matters. And in the end, those provided the sparks to the Islanders that got them back in the game or got them out of a long slump during the game. And Toronto doesn't have that. And I'm starting to have some doubts about this team and whether the all speed and skill and no toughness or very little toughness, very little pushback is going to work for them.
Well, first thing is, as far as the Islanders go, there's times where they don't generate a lot of scoring chances. So I can't give the Leafs too much credit for holding them to the small amount early on because a lot of times that's part and parcel of their game. Mm-hmm. They're sort of sitting back waiting for a mistake to happen. You did point out to me that a mistake did happen on a Beauvillier goal, and that is what they capitalize on a lot of times. But again, teams that want to play the same way as the Islanders, if you're going to be a copycat league, you're going to get beaten by this team. Mm-hmm. They've been playing this way for almost 2 years, and Trotz has been doing it for longer than that. You've got to go at it a different way. We've talked about how to do it. Obviously, the Leafs didn't do it. It's a problem. I mean, now, again, I still don't think this makes the Islanders the best team in the league. I don't, because I think all they're doing is exploiting the regular season a little bit. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to, because they're playing this brand of hockey, which I don't love, but it's effective as hell. And teams now sort of fall into it like, all right, you know what? We'll beat you at your own game, because coaches sort of get that way, and they can't.
I heard, and bear with me for a second because I'm going to make an analogy that's historical to the way the Leafs are playing. I once listened to an interview of somebody who wrote a book on the Titanic, and the philosophy of the captain of the Titanic when it came to icebergs was a philosophy called cracking on. It was basically the way to get through an ice field was to go as fast as you can through the ice field and get it behind you.
Right.
Because, which doesn't make any sense, because you think you'd go slower. I'm going to
run around the brick wall rather than run into it.
Right.
Wiley Coyote, on the other hand, doesn't.
That's the philosophy of the Leafs in their own defensive zone. It's like, let's get out of here as quickly as we possibly can, because we stink in our own end. And the problem is that because you stink in your own end, you're going to give up the puck. And that's what happened on basically the game-winning goal, on the goal that turned the tide, was you had Kerfoot give away the puck. Barry was exiting the zone thinking that they had possession so he could jump into the attack. They turn it over. Muzzin is back by himself 2-on-1 down low, and it goes to Beauvillier, and he slips it through Anderson's pad. Their philosophy in terms of their own defensive zone is, let's get it out of the zone as quickly as we possibly can. It's not orderly. It's not structured. It's haphazard. And I can't blame players on that. I have to blame the coach on that. You do have to blame the coach. But again, there's ways to go about this. Clearly, they didn't do it, and they got stung. And that's where a lot of teams are finding that out. So we'll see if in the middle of the season, as we roll on, teams get a little smarter and start playing the Islanders differently. But, Thomas did hit me up on Twitter last night saying, hey, he doesn't like Varlamov. He's given up 8 goals in the last 2 games. And see, that is a little bit of a worry, because Greiss is good, but do you want to run Thomas Greiss out as your potential one? That's where they could run into some trouble too. Yeah, and somebody observed on Twitter that I think the Leafs have 9 victories right now. There's 6. They have 6 in regulation, 3 in either overtime or shootout. The 6 regulation victories are against the teams that are at the bottom of the NHL standings. So right now, the Leafs are not, the Leafs are not beating the teams that are supposedly they're equal or maybe a little better. They're only beating the teams that are the also-rans in the league. Now they canceled their practice today. They had some sort of team meeting. They have a tough schedule ahead, a lot of road games over the next month. I mean, again, I keep saying, and I will continue to say, that Mike Babcock is not getting fired for the rest of the season unless they fall so dramatically out of the race for the playoffs that there's no chance for them making it. If they lose 10, 12 games in a row, then he might be in trouble, but he's going to get the whole year. But right now, I think there has to be some sort of change in philosophy in Toronto. You've got Tyson Barrie, one of the best power play point guys in the league, and he's playing second power play while Morgan Rielly is the first power play guy. And Morgan Rielly is a really good offensive defenseman, but he doesn't have a shot from the point. Their power play is in the bottom third. Their penalty killing is in the bottom third. Their special teams are killing them. They didn't get a shot on goal on 2 power plays. They gave up 2 goals on Islander power plays. I mean, special teams, backup goaltending, team defense are all big factors, and they're losing on all those factors. Well, I just think Babcock's going to crack on. I really do.
I don't see any change.
Yeah. And I think that's a failing for that team. Now, okay, some big news. We'll get to the news now, and then we'll talk about a few more games and talk about some other things and take some questions at the end of the show. Sidney Crosby, it was reported the last couple days, he was contemplating sports hernia surgery or maybe just toughing it out. Well, the decision came down today. He is having the surgery. They say he's going to be out a minimum of 6 weeks. And this is a tough decision for the Penguins because now they've survived in the past without Malkin for long stretches, without Crosby for long stretches. They got Malkin back recently. They can survive without one of these guys for a prolonged period, but with the tightness of the race in the East, I mean, they're going to have to play above 500 to stay in the playoff race by the time Crosby comes back. And that means without Letang, but that means Matt Murray staying healthy and playing well.
Right now, he is playing really well.
He is. And so is Jerry. Jerry is playing. Yeah. He's got over, I think, a 2.6 goals against. He's playing pretty good. So, but they're going to need all hands on deck to make up for Crosby.
But I think they're capable. Like they know that this is the game and they'll eventually make another move. I don't expect anything other than that. Crosby made the right decision. We talked about it yesterday. This is why Eagles fans were so mad at Deshaun Jackson, because he had basically the same issue. He tries to strengthen it up and come back, and he gets re-injured, and he's probably out for the year. Crosby's smarter than that. He's like, you know what? We're just going to have to take it on the chin right now. Let me go rehab, get the operation, start rehabbing right away. Get back as soon as I can. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and this is sort of like a high ankle sprain too. This is an injury. They say 6 weeks, but you don't want to rush back from a sports hernia injury. It's going to take time to build up strength in that area. So I mean, it could be 2 months. It could be 8 weeks.
I don't think it'll be that long with Crosby. They'll use the hyperbaric chamber and such.
Yeah, that's true. But
so I think 6-7 weeks.
Yeah. Another injury plagued, not to say Crosby's injury plagued, but another move of an injury plagued player. The Islanders placed Andrew Ladd on waivers today. Apparently I didn't know he was down in Bridgeport on a rehabilitation stint, but the statement from the Islanders said that they hadn't seen enough out of the 5 games that he played in Bridgeport that necessitated him being activated and being on the roster. So they're placing him on waivers to go down to Bridgeport. And there's no risk here of him being claimed because he's got 3 years left, I believe $5.5 million. But I need to say this to the Islander fans, as some of the ones that were chanting and booing and hissing John Tavares yesterday, because they seem to blame John Tavares solely for him leaving for Toronto. And he wouldn't have left for Toronto if he didn't want to, but he also left because the Islanders were a shit show.
Right.
Especially under Garth Snow. It's changed now under Lou and under Barry Trotz, but it was. And if you need evidence, Exhibit A of that shit show was the signing of Andrew Ladd to, 6 years, 5 years?
Yep.
At $5.5 million? There's your reason why they couldn't afford Tavares. There's $5.5 million that you've thrown away. You could have used that to sign Tavares. Maybe he would have stayed if you overpaid him.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, that was a horrible contract. He's a great guy. I get it. But you never know at what age. Like I always tell people always, talk about age. Like I was talking about a player I see in decline in baseball the other day, and they're like, well, he's only 25, 26. It doesn't matter. I'm seeing decline, which means by 29, he might be irrelevant. So how old's Ladd here?
I think Ladd's 31.
He's been irrelevant. He's been irrelevant for at least 2 seasons.
He's been irrelevant since he came to the Island. He's been irrelevant since they traded him to Chicago.
Yeah. So you never know when Father Time's calling and when you're an athlete, and this is not the right era for Andrew Ladd. He was never the fastest guy. So the Islanders did what they had to do.
Ladd is 33.
33. So he may have been finished by 29. Like really a useful player.
Yeah, and he's got 3 years left at $5.5 million, and they only save $1.025 million by sending him down to the minors. So this is not a cost-cutting move.
Now, did they send up Josh Hosang?
No.
No.
I don't think. I think they just sent him. I think they just sent him down. I didn't see a corresponding move of a player coming up.
Of course not, because things are going good. Why give a kid a chance? They're not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope for Hosang's. I mean, we haven't heard a thing about Hosang in at least a couple of weeks. I'm checking right now just to see.
I'm doing the same because I'm curious.
Yeah, whether. Yeah, there he is on the roster. I mean, he's on the
roster, but he hasn't played a game.
Yeah, he's in limbo until they make a move, and that maybe it's reflective of the fact that nobody is offering anything because he's been trouble. But I mean, you would think that somebody would be interested. I mean, I think
so. Now he can't play on the AHL or NHL level.
Well, right now he's a healthy scratch at the AHL level until he gets traded.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Like, what is the point of that?
Well, I mean, they could say, well, he requested a trade, but I mean, this is the thing. He's 23 years old. If they don't trade him, I would be shocked if they qualify him next year.
Right.
And then he becomes an unrestricted free agent and goes anywhere he wants. But this is just. I mean, it's not a good situation. I thought Lou usually, when the situation came up with Frankie Corrado, he knew that Babcock wasn't going to play him, and Corrado was sent to Pittsburgh as part of the deal. I think it was the Eric Fair deal.
Yeah,
he at least got a chance with Pittsburgh, more than a chance that he would have gotten with Toronto, and then ended up in the minor leagues. They actually ended up back with the Marlies last year. But the whole
thing about this has been an issue since like October 27th when Andrew Gross wrote about it.
Yeah,
we're like well into November now, and he's not playing, and they won't call him up, and they're not playing him. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
He demanded a trade, asked for a trade, whatever. Who cares?
James in the chat says, Hosang. I don't think Hosang was placed on waivers, was he? Yes, he was. He
had to be to get sent down, yeah.
Right. He was placed on waivers and nobody claimed him. Well, that's not a statement on Hosang not having.
Not at all.
Yeah, you know what it is? I mean, the same thing could be said about, and I'm not comparing the two, but Nick Patan was placed on waivers. Nick Patan scored 7 points in 3 games for the Marlies. A lot of people think he's a borderline NHLer, might be willing to give him a chance, but the problem is that with roster sizes and with cap situations, they want to trade a player for player.
Right.
The Leafs don't want another player for Patan. They want to open up cap space. They want to clear a contract. And they put him out there twice in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Nobody claimed him.
Yep.
So, the Hosang, it's basically the same thing.
Like, this Hosang situation is really awful. It is.
Yeah. And maybe his chance will be when, he may have to wait another year before expansion. Maybe Seattle will be an opportunity. He's a young, exciting player. But the thing is, by that time, he's 25 years old. That's 7 years from the time he was drafted.
Still, Robin Regehr took until he was like 25 to break through. It could still happen.
True. Couple other things. According to Pierre LeBrun, there's still ongoing discussions planned. The discussions will be held today between the LA Kings and Ilya Kovalchuk's camp. He has a 50% bonus due on December 15th, and LeBrun says that looms large, so we're not sure we'll see anything concrete done until after that, but you never know. Well, this is the thing. Again, when the news came out a couple days ago, it's a 35 and over contract. There's no way to escape it. If he retires, they take the cap hit next year, 6.25. If he goes back to the KHL, they take the cap hit 6.25. If they send him to the minors, if they tell him they're never playing him, cap hit 6.25. The only way to get that guy off of the books is to trade him. And who's going to? And no, even if they retain 50% and make him a $3 million player, is there anybody who takes him? I don't think so. Apparently, the two teams that were bidding up Kovalchuk that were interested a couple years ago when he was a free agent were San Jose and Boston. San Jose's got enough old guys.
Yeah, they got a collection.
Old, expensive guys. And do you think Boston wants him any? They took Jaromir Jagr, but that was the Jaromir Jagr who had the workmanlike effort, who was, trying to stay. He was actually a good teammate and a good example. Right. Is Kovalchuk an example that you want in your locker room?
Nope.
No.
And the Rangers won't do it either because I don't think they'd want Kovalchuk with the young Russian players there. Nope.
And Panarin, no, it doesn't make any sense. Curious, healthy scratch tonight in Buffalo between two struggling teams, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Sabres. Colin Miller, who's played, I think he's played every game for the Sabres, is a healthy scratch. Marco Scandella, who was hurt a couple weekends ago, is back in the lineup. I'm going to be curious to see the list of scouts in the press box in Buffalo tonight, Russ, because I have a feeling that Scandella is being showcased.
Yeah, but again, what is he really worth?
There's enough to teams out there looking for defensemen that I think there would be interest. And the Sabres are looking for some forward help. Maybe there's somebody out there that is a situation where that team wants to get rid of a forward and
but he's making 4.7. How much are they going to eat? It's a $4 million cap hit, but the salary's 4.7. What are they going to eat on that?
They can't eat anything right now. They're up against
more. I mean, Scandella, it's not like you put him on your team. Like even Winnipeg won't want him.
Well, Winnipeg won't want him because they can't. There's no resolution to the situation with Bufflin right now, so they don't know what's going on. They don't know if they have cap space or not, and they can't make a move until they know whether they have cap space or not. Was
this a Botterill signing? I think it was just before him because it's 17-18.
Yeah, no. Botterill's in his second year. That was
right. So yeah, this is not a signing for him.
Scandella was acquired in the trade. He was part of the Tyler Ennis deal. Yeah.
I was just looking at that straight salary history. So
Marcus Foligno, Tyler Ennis, Pominville was the Pominville deal.
Okay. Well, this was not a great deal because they didn't really get much, and now you can't move his salary. I don't think he's going to move. I don't think anybody wants him.
I think he'll move closer to the deadline. If it's
the deadline when it's a half of that, yeah.
Right. Okay, so a few other games last night. Just touch on them, and then we'll take some questions, and we've got a couple other things. Ottawa beats New Jersey 4-2. Ottawa's played much better of late.
I think New Jersey was up in that game.
Yeah, they were up. I think they were up 2-0. And but the Senators have played really well of late. JG Pageau with a hat trick. I mean, the funny thing is, Pageau is a guy they're going to trade. You know that they're going to trade him.
Yeah.
Now, if he takes a hometown discount or something like that, is the possibility he stays? Sure. But I think that the Senators are basically in a posture where anybody who's not nailed down is getting traded, and they have 8 unrestricted free agents. Just quickly go through them because Michael Bodker, I don't think anybody's going to want. Nemestikov at 3.25, who's playing pretty well for them. Possibility. Now, Pageau is an RFA, not a UFA, but
no, they're going to sign him. They like him. I don't blame them.
Well, maybe not. The thing is, Russ, they've had guys who are RFAs too that they, if they don't want to pay him and sign him long term, they're going to trade him.
No, they won't trade Pageau. You watch.
Okay. Tyler Ennis is a fourth line veteran guy. So I don't think that's going to, maybe they trade him for a draft pick, but
yeah, that would be it.
Ron Hainsey could be traded. DeMello could be traded. Craig Anderson.
DeMello is a very reasonable contract. Hainsey will get traded.
Yeah, Craig Anderson will definitely be traded.
He'll definitely get traded.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of in and out with that organization over the next couple months. But now, talking about the Devils, Blackwood did not have a good game last night. I saw a couple of goals that I thought were fairly weak. 3 goals on 24 shots. the Devils, I mean, not that I expect them to get back into the playoff race, but to just be respectable, they're going to need their goaltending to be a little better than it has, and I don't know whether that can be the case.
Louis Domingue will get a shot at some point.
Well, I mean, otherwise it didn't make any sense for them to make that move. It's either to replace Blackwood if they send Blackwood down to Binghamton, or it's to, take the spot of Schneider if they decide to waive Schneider. But
right.
I mean, that's a $6 million cap hit with
at some point, stuff has to happen. They're in trouble otherwise. Because you got to remember, Taylor Hall's watching them lose.
Yeah, and he's going to watch them lose probably from another team next year the way it's going. Capitals beat the Flyers 2-1 in a shootout. You had some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I get it where, the Flyers want to say, hey, we held the best team in hockey to 1 goal in 3 periods. That's fine. And I think Claude Giroux scored in the shootout again. He actually put on a nice move if I was watching the right video highlight, which I think I was. But end of the day, they have 6 regulation wins. And this is going to be a big problem for this team because this is what happened with a lot of these veterans in the Hackstall era. So follow me. The teams that are outside the playoffs, Penguins, 7 wins. Leafs, 6 wins. These are regulation. Carolina, 7. Buffalo, 6. Tampa, 6. Rangers, 7. Even Ottawa and Detroit have 6, even though they have no chance. So just because the Flyers are in the 3rd spot, the fact that they're not winning regulation games early, that's when you have to win them. Because later in the season, everybody's trying for a point. If you start trying for that point too early, it could come back and bite you, man.
Yeah, I mean, right now I don't think teams are focused on regulation or shootout. They're focusing on the 2 points. But down the line, it's going to be a factor. I mean, that's a very meaningful tiebreaker. It's like that races are going to come down to 1 or 2 points, and it's sort of like a half point in a sense because,
right.
And that's big when it comes down to these. Points are just as big in the first 20 games as they are in the final 20 games.
I mean, you gained a point, you gave Washington 2. Just remember that.
Right. Yeah, and Funky in the chat says, close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and Mike's gray sweaters. I'll give you points on that one. 3-1 Stars beat the Flames.
Who was in net, Mike? Who was in net for the Flames?
I'm checking. I think it was Riddich. Oh, no. It was
I told you earlier.
It was Cam Talbot. Yes, it was.
That was a setup.
Well, sorry. I don't remember the setup. But now this is the thing.
You felt like Ernest Biner in the playoffs.
Joe Pavelski with a couple goals, which I'm sure is very good news to the Dallas Stars because he had started out really slowly. But there was a lot of noise over the last week regarding Jim Montgomery calling out Sagan and Ben because, again, last year they had the slow start. This year they have the slow start. I mean, at a certain point, don't you think that – I mean, I know those contracts are tough to move, if not impossible. But, I mean, something's got to change there if this is continuing to be a problem where these players start slow.
No, I agree, but they're not going to move Sagan.
No.
Ben would be the guy you'd like to move, but Ben doesn't score enough anymore to want to do that. So it's like to get a really good guy, workman-like guy who doesn't score as much, I don't know if they want to pay that salary. So I don't think anybody moves. I think they just have to light a fire under him. Pavelski couldn't have scored 2 goals because they only had 1 in that game. I do want to point that out.
Well,
wasn't it 3-1?
3-1 Stars.
Oh, 3-1 Stars. Sorry.
Yeah, which is unusual because Cam Talbot got first star in the game
as the losing goalie.
As the losing goalie, so he must have. I didn't see any of the highlights, so he must have stood on his head.
Yeah.
But Pavelski got 2 goals, and he was the 3rd star of the game.
I did see a little bit where Bishop was playing well. I mean, that is the key to them. I mean, Bishop does have to play well.
Yeah, and here's the thing: Jamie Benn, 5 years left at $9.5 million. That's unless you find a contract that is just as onerous, and it's somebody of a comparable age that needs a change of scenery. I don't know how that gets moved. I mean,
it'll turn into their Dustin Brown. Like that's the way it's going.
Right. I mean, there are players out there that have term like that teams might want to move on from, but those deals are really tough to make.
But this isn't Dallas's fault because he's had hip injuries. He had both hips done recently. So, you can't predict that when you sign a guy to a deal. He was young when they signed him.
Sure. The other game was something that you watched a little bit of. I just heard about and checked out some highlights. The Blackhawks win 5-3 over Vegas. Now, interesting thing in this game, and I saw the Hawks on Sunday against the Leafs. The line combo of DeBrincat, Strome, and Kane has really been working well. They combined for 2 goals against the Golden Knights. Again, I look back at that deal, and for those who think that John Chaika is a great general manager, that the mishandling of Dylan Strome in Arizona has sort of come back to bite them, because he's been a perfect fit, and maybe it's the fit in Chicago, but he's been a perfect fit there. Plays with his old junior line mate DeBrincat. Now they have Kane on that line. That line is scoring in big bunches, takes the offensive heat off of Taves and Scott. We know that Chicago has some fatal flaws. Their defense is not good, but their goaltending, you said Crawford was unbelievable yesterday.
He was unbelievable. Like, he made some just amazing saves. He stoned Mark Stone on a breakaway, but apparently Stone has really worked on his speed, because you don't really think of Mark Stone ever like getting a breakaway or getting behind the defense at his size, and so he looks pretty good. So that's something where that's a big thing for his career, because they just signed him to a long-term deal. So he obviously dedicated himself to skating in the offseason, which is smart. And no offense, but he'll have to do that every year. That's what hockey players have to do now to sort of keep up. I do want to point out as well, in that game, the high danger chances for both teams were insane. Fleury was just, he was making some really good saves, but I don't know if he's going to survive this season. He's had 478 shots against in 16 games. To show what the difference there is, Freddie Anderson in 15 games has had 467. So, and I bet you if we break him down, Fleury not only has faced more shots than Anderson, but probably more high danger shots, because both those teams, the defense was a hot mess. There really wasn't defense.
Yeah, and we all know, Fleury, I think, is 34 or 35. He's got to play less than, I would say, 60 games.
He's 34, but he's 351 days, so he's going to be 35 at the end of the month.
Right. He's got to play 50 to 55 games, and right now they don't have a backup goaltender. I saw Malcolm Subban last week against the Leafs. He played well. They lost 2-1 in overtime. Maybe that merits more workload, but I don't know if they're going to give him enough of a workload to really spell Fleury.
Fleury's leading the league in games played.
Yeah, and Anderson's not far behind, and
he's one game behind.
Yeah, the backup situation in Toronto, and that's. Last night I honestly think that Anderson looked tired.
Yeah,
and he didn't play on Saturday. They played Hutchinson, or Sunday. They played Hutchinson, so. He got a few days rest and didn't seem to help. When you're playing goalies over and over again, a few days rest doesn't do enough.
What I found out on another show that I was on is they're now just trying to limit Fleury taking shots in practice, so he doesn't have so many shots that he has to stop even just in practice.
Right.
I don't know if that's going to matter. He's just facing way too many shots. That's the answer, and that's the difference in Vegas right now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that, and Toronto's doing the same thing, lessening practices, lessening workloads, no morning skates or optional morning skates. That's all fine and good, but when you're facing high impact shots on goal and scoring chances in games, that's what tires you out. So, when you're 40 shots a night or having to, stretch like Gumby, it's tough. It's tough on goaltenders. It really is.
Now, last night, I heard Cody Glass's name, and I know he was sent down the other day.
Yeah.
So that has confused me.
Could it have been a paper move? And I'm looking at the box score right now just to see if he was in the lineup or not, because, we've seen how many times have we seen this year somebody gets sent down and gets called up the next day.
I mean, it could have been Dick Stockton.
Yeah, no, he was in the lineup.
Yeah, I was going to say Dick Stockton could have been calling the game, and then, anybody.
Was Leslie Visser on anywhere in the area?
No, but anybody's name could be called at that point. So I guess it was a paper transaction because Cody Glass was in there, and I thought I saw him for the short time I watched. So that's good for him. I think that's a big help for them, but they're short on defense. They just are. Like
even with Schmidt back, they're short on defense.
Yeah, no, even with him back, they're short on defense, and that's what you have to worry about with that team. But that was the first time that the Blackhawks have ever beaten the Golden Knights. They've never beaten them.
All right, some questions here. Thomas,
we don't even care about that. Whatever.
I did. I agreed.
A whole lot of big time.
If I'm moving on, I agreed.
A whole lot of big time factoid, and you're just like flee it right off. Whatever.
Thomas Boyle asks, Mike, do you think the Islanders game yesterday was on Varlamov or on the Islanders defensive play? Well, I'm not sure what you mean on.
Just they didn't play as well as they probably the score says.
I don't remember Varlamov making one great defensive play. Honestly, I think the game was on the Leafs' lack of defensive play.
Okay.
And the failing of their special teams. Like I said, they went 0 for 2 and no shots on goal on the power play. They gave up 2 power play goals. Their special teams are both in the bottom third of the league. The two of the regular strength goals are on complete, bafflingly brain dead turnovers by Nylander, Janssen, and then by Barry.
See, Thomas has like a fishing picture there. I wonder if he was fishing for sunnies. We used to fish. We used to catch sunnies up in like upstate New York.
Sunnies?
Sunnies, they were called. Yeah, I don't know what type of fish that really is, but that was obviously a nickname. Let me see if I can.
Did you eat them? Did you eat them?
No. I don't think we ever ate them. I think we always did the catch and release. I would never
eat anything I caught in Lake Erie because it had dioxin or some sort of.
Oh yeah, Lake Erie. Yeah, I totally get it. No, sunnies is a bluegill.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we never ate them, but we used to catch them.
Okay.
Little knowledge there.
Yeah, thank you. Where was that one here?
Now I feel like I'm more appreciated on this show.
There you go. Of course. I'm looking for the question that I saw, but of course the chat advances. Somebody said, I don't remember. I'm just doing it by memory here. Somebody said, when is enough with the Leafs? And
all season, man, that it's going to have to get really bad if you think Babcock's getting fired.
50-16. When is enough in Toronto? Well, Babcock's not getting fired.
That's our logo. He spent a lot of time on that logo there. Shifty did. You see the S logo there?
Yeah, that's not bad.
No, that's pretty good. He might be a graphic designer. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. No. I even if the Leafs, I think, are in a wild card race, I think Babcock is safe.
He's safe as long as they're in a playoff race. Yeah.
Right. If they lose, and I've said this throughout the year, if they lose 10, 12 games in a row and they're out of it, then I think he gets fired.
Right.
And I think it'll be like Dave Hackstall as the interim coach for the rest of the year, and then Sheldon Keefe would take over the following year. They won't.
And they put the binder away again that has the parade route. They go, all right, closes the book on another season. And
parade route. My God. All right. Esmir asks, would you see the Islanders trading for Taylor Hall at the deadline in order to get a winger for Barzal?
I don't think they'll give up the kind of assets that the Devils will be asking for. I think Lou especially won't want to help out New Jersey.
Yeah, especially a team. If it was New Jersey and New Jersey was in another division, maybe. But
Lou doesn't necessarily get along very well with that owner. Is that fair to say? I think that's fair to say.
Well, that's the owner that put him up in a emeritus position as
Correct.
president and hired Shiro underneath his nose. So yeah, I think you're probably right.
So I don't think that deal will happen.
I think he'd like to see the owner rot in hell, but what the hell? I'm not going to say anything for Lou. Lou can talk for himself.
Yep.
Let's see. A couple more questions. Hey, Russ, our friend Joe, why isn't Hank playing tonight?
It's a good question. Georgiev played last game. He got a win. They've been riding the hot hand with Georgiev as much as possible, but when they did the 3 in a row, then they got stung. So I guess they figured 2 in a row is okay. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't think that's a big deal.
Mark asks, give me an example of a player that would help the Leafs push back on physical teams. I don't think one player will do it. That's the problem.
Robert Polak. He's injured, I think.
He's injured, yeah. Well, okay, I'll give you an example, and I know Elliot Friedman.
Sorry.
I know Elliot Friedman mentioned him on a recent 31 Thoughts podcast, and he was interviewed, was Kyle Clifford. Because Kyle Clifford is inexpensive. I think he's $1.6 million, and LA probably would retain half the salary to get an asset for him. He's a UFA. Supposedly he would want to go back to LA, or they would want him to go back to LA because he's been a good soldier for them. But he's a big winger, experienced. I mean, the problem is that right now, who on the Leafs provides pushback? Jake Muzzin,
Zach Hyman.
You don't want Zach Hyman fighting, but he'll hit go in the corners. So will Muzzin, to an extent. Justin Hall, who's a bottom pairing defenseman. Dermott doesn't get pushed around. After that, I mean, you got feisty guys like Janssen who like to snip around, but they're not physical guys.
But again, when guys are picked on in a game, like as an example, Ryan Lindgren on the Rangers will go in there and push the guy around. He doesn't have to fight him.
Right.
If a few more Leafs did that, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah, like I said, Scott Mayfield hit Tavares. Nobody even shoved him after the next whistle.
Right.
And then that's inexcusable. You cannot allow your big players to get muscled around.
Mayfield's a big, tough kid. He is. I know him very well.
Remember, this is a team that last year in Game 7 of the first round against Boston, Zdeno Chara punched Tavares in a scrum along the boards. I mean, like in the face, like knocked him down. Nobody did anything. Now it's Chara, but at least you go and do something. At least you show that that's not acceptable. And the problem is that right now there's maybe 2 or 3 players on that Leaf team who will provide any kind of pushback. And guys like, you're not going to get it from Nylander, you're not going to get it from Matthews, you're not going to get it from Marner. That's not their game. Okay, then you get a couple players. You sit guys like Nick Shore and Freddie Gauthier, and you put a couple players in there like Clifford, or calling up Mason Marchment if you consider him an NHL, capable player. But you need those players. I think it was Doug Armstrong who said. Oh no, it was Brian McClellan who said that the GM of the Capitals, who said you need a balance of speed, skill, and strength and size.
I got a better quote than that.
Go ahead.
If you can't beat them on the ice, you can't beat them in the alley. Who said that, Mike?
Fred Shiro.
Conn Smythe, when he was with the Leafs. See, it's an age-old argument for the Leafs.
It's a different game now.
Yeah.
But it's not so different.
You got a little Conn Smythe in you. That's what I'm telling you.
There you go. All right. Any more questions in the chat? I don't see any, so I think we'll end the show there. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, here you go. One more. Randy, our friend Flamester. Will Taylor Hall go to Alberta? If you're talking about before the deadline.
I don't think he wants to go to a Canadian market. I would be surprised. Yeah. I just get the feeling he doesn't want the scrutiny anymore.
If I had to guess, Karnak, put the turban on my head, Sim Saladim. I would say he's going to Colorado.
Colorado, Carolina, Florida.
Yeah.
I would look at those teams.
Teams that have a backlog of prospects and draft picks.
Who can make the playoffs, who also have a very even keel media market.
New Jersey would be willing, likely to retain 50% of the salary if they get a better return.
Definitely.
So that makes him a $3 million player, which would open up teams like Florida, Carolina has the cap space, Colorado.
$3 million for Taylor Hall is a bargain. Like anybody would want to do that.
Right. So, all right. Good show. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz,